The Academy orbited a serene, weatherless, silent moon. From afar, it appeared as a metallic ring embracing a dark core. Internally, it comprised a maze of corridors, training areas, and chambers designed to accommodate diverse body types. Evan Brooks moved with the measured gait of someone adept at conserving energy. Dressed in the standard grey trainee uniform, he carried himself with an undercurrent of urgency. His hands were unburdened, his posture relaxed, and his eyes subtly scanned exits and sightlines. 3 weeks at the station had taught him one truth. The Academy valued capability under observation above all else. The Close Combat Doctrine class convened in a circular hall with terraced seating. At its heart lay a pristine floor, demarcated for distance and angle, beneath a silent lattice of sensors. Instructor Jar Sam stood at the floor's edge, a compact, dense figure built for explosive force. A Vescari, he possessed thick forearms and a broad chest, with a narrow face, predatory, forward-set eyes, and a mouth rarely softened by amusement. Sam waited until every trainee was seated. Evan chose a second-row seat, neither too prominent nor too obscure, close enough to observe, distant enough to avoid immediate selection. Sam tapped a control panel, prompting a display to rise from the floor, presenting a rotating image of a humanoid figure wielding twin blades. The image flickered, slowed, then froze. Sam's voice, clear and effortless, cut through the quiet. Academy doctrine is unambiguous. No species can effectively dual-wield in live combat without compromising defensive integrity. A subtle shift rippled through the trainees. Some exchanged glances. Others nodded, as if a long-awaited rule had been articulated. Sam continued. 2 weapons fragment attention. They overwhelm coordination. They introduce an asymmetry that the nervous system cannot swiftly reconcile. Simulations attest to brief gains, followed by prolonged failure. He scanned their faces with a slight turn of his head. A single blade constitutes a complete system. It offers reach, precise angle control, and predictable recovery. The instant a second blade is introduced, stability is forsaken for chaos. Evan listened impassively, without a hint of mockery or judgment, his gaze fixed on the displayed image. A trainee with long limbs and a crested head raised a hand. Instructor Sam, human culture records dual blade styles. Sam remained unimpressed. Cultural records are not doctrine. The trainee persisted. Then why prohibit it rather than testing it? Sam's gaze swept the room, momentarily settling on Evan. Because testing it consumes time. It costs lives. The Academy's purpose is to forge reliable operators, not to entertain romantic narratives. Evan maintained a neutral expression. Sam dismissed the query with a slight hand gesture. The display shifted to illustrate stance lines and guard angles. Your evaluations will gauge efficiency, Sam declared, not theatricality. The blade is a tool. Tools are utilized correctly, or they are squandered. The lecture delved into specifics: grip pressure, foot placement, shoulder alignment, recovery timing. The language was sterile, dissecting bodies as though they were machines, and pain a mere calibration signal. Evan took no notes. The information was ingrained in his muscle memory, a legacy of previous mentors, different training rooms, and the lingering scent of sweat and old steel. Following the lecture, trainees dispersed into practice bays, each stocked with training weapons tailored to the assigned species. Some bays held polearms, others curved blades, and some weighted batons designed to simulate clawed strikes. Evan's bay contained standard human swords, Not ornamental, not sharpened, but dense, composite blades, balanced for authentic movement. Mara Consincade, another human, shorter than Evan, and with an observant, discerning nature, met him at the weapon rack. "You heard him," Mara murmured, selecting a single sword. "No dual-wielding." Evan picked up one sword, assessing its weight. "I heard." Mara studied him. "That tone means you're contemplating something." Evan offered no reply. He stepped onto the marked floor, commencing his warm-up with deliberate cuts, horizontal, vertical, diagonal. Each motion culminated precisely where the blade needed to be, rather than where it merely looked impressive. Mara mirrored his sequence beside him. Sam despises improvisation. He despises failure. Evan paused. Mara added, "He believes they're one and the same." Evan's blade halted cleanly at the end of a cut. "They're not." Across the bay, an alien trainee named Vargo practiced with a single curved weapon. Vargo, from a species known for fluid spinal movement and swift hips, executed sharp, elegant strikes. He regarded the human blades with undisguised skepticism. "Your swords are heavy," Vargo noted in trade speech. "They are honest," Evan replied. Vargo tilted his head.
"Honest?"
"They perform as intended," Evan explained. "No assistance, no compensation." Vargo observed Evan's stance. "Then why would anyone wield two?" Mara shot Evan a glance, a silent warning against revealing too much. Evan kept his voice steady. "Sometimes you take two because the situation dictates two hands." Vargo made a subtle clicking sound, possibly amusement. "Instructor Sam states that's impossible." Evan resumed his motion drills. He said, "No species can." Mara frowned. "Don't try it here." Evan glanced at her briefly, not defiantly, merely calmly. "Not today." The practice session transitioned to paired exercises, with trainees alternating roles as attacker and defender. The academy favored controlled sparring initially, escalating to higher speed exchanges as proficiency grew. Evan partnered with Vargo. Sam patrolled the perimeter, observing silently. He offered concise corrections on posture and halted a trainee for overextending. He commended another for maintaining a tight guard. When Sam reached Evan and Vargo, he paused. "Begin," he instructed. Vargo initiated with a quick, light attack. Evan retreated half a step, allowing the strike to pass, then countered with a single, controlled cut that would have scored the shoulder in a real engagement. Vargo adjusted, pressing faster. Evan met it with a block and a counter that concluded the exchange. Sam watched without comment. Vargo stepped back, breathing rapidly. "You move like you expect pain." Evan kept his blade raised. "I expect contact." Sam spoke. "Human Brooks, your defense is competent. Your offense is restrained." Evan replied, "Restraint preserves options." Sam's eyes narrowed. "Options can be weakness." Evan offered no argument, simply resetting his stance. The session concluded without incident, disobedience, or spectacle. Yet, as Evan returned his sword to the rack, his gaze lingered on the second blade slot. He did not reach for it. Not yet. The Academy had scheduled a live assessment in 3 days, featuring a full motion tracking grid, adaptive opponents, and real scoring. Sam believed Doctrine was settled. Evan did not. The days leading up to the live assessment passed more slowly than Evan anticipated, not due to a light schedule, but because each hour felt heavy with anticipation. The Academy's atmosphere shifted as assessments approached. Corridors grew quieter, instructors spoke less, and trainees reviewed footage and diagnostics instead of conversing. Confidence was permitted. Complacency was not. Evan dedicated most of his free hours to the conditioning ring, not lifting or striking, but moving. Weaponless footwork drills, balance shifts, rotational steps, seamless transitions from forward pressure to retreat. He trained both sides equally, forcing his left hand to work until it transcended the role of a mere backup, becoming a full partner. One evening, Mara observed him from the ring's edge. "You're overtraining your offhand," she remarked. Evan continued his movements. "I'm correcting neglect." "For what?" she inquired. "For control," he replied. She stepped closer. "You're planning something." Evan slowed, facing her. "Planning is merely preparation free of panic." "That doesn't answer the question," she stated. He met her gaze. "The doctrine assumes symmetry failure. It assumes two weapons compete for attention. That's only true if you demand they perform the same function." Mara frowned. "You sound like Sam." Evan shook his head. "No, he teaches systems. I'm discussing roles." Before she could respond, a shadow fell across the ring entrance. Instructor Sam stood there, arms folded. "Human Brooks," Sam said. "You are excused from conditioning. Briefing room 3. Mara stepped back. Evan wiped his hands and followed without comment. Briefing room 3 was small and Spartan. One table, 2 chairs, no display. Sam gestured for Evan to sit. Evan remained standing until Sam sat first. Sam studied him for a long moment. "You listen attentively. You do not publicly challenge doctrine, yet your training metrics indicate divergence." Evan nodded. "Yes." "Explain," Sam commanded. "I train for asymmetry," Evan replied. "Because combat is asymmetric." Sam's jaw tightened slightly. "Doctrine exists to eliminate unnecessary variance." "Doctrine exists to manage risk," Evan corrected. "Variance is already inherent." Sam leaned back. "You believe yourself an exception." "No," Evan stated. "I believe doctrine is a baseline, not a ceiling." Silence enveloped the room. "You intend to defy instruction during the assessment," Sam said. Evan did not deny it. "I intend to respond to the scenario." Sam's eyes sharpened. "The scenario will not demand dual-wielding." "Nor will it forbid it," Evan countered. Sam rose. "If you undermine control during a live assessment, I will remove you." "Yes," Evan affirmed. Sam paused at the door. "You will also embarrass yourself." Evan replied evenly, "That is an acceptable risk." The assessment bay dwarfed any training space Evan had previously utilized. Its floor was embedded with motion sensors, its walls projected adaptive terrain, and the ceiling tracked every limb, every angle, every minute delay. Observers filled the upper gallery. Instructors, analysts, and command liaisons from various species who viewed the academy as a crucible observed. Sam stood before the main console. "Trainees," he declared. "This assessment measures effectiveness under changing circumstances. Weapon selection is at your discretion, within given parameters." "Issued parameters?" Evan mused, feeling Mara's gaze from across the staging boundary. Weapon racks emerged silently from the floor. Single blades of known balance appeared. Alongside them, paired sets. Evan advanced deliberately, grasping the first sword, then the second. A subtle ripple of surprise spread through the observers. Sam did not react immediately. His fingers paused above the console. Evan turned back to the line, both blades in hand. Mara's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" Evan gave a single nod. Yes. Real Vargo, intrigued, tilted his head. You double your burden. Evan adjusted his hold, one blade extended, the other held lower and closer. Different angles, different intentions. Sam's voice cut through the rising murmurs. Human Brooks! Evan looked up. This is not advisable, Sam stated. Understood, Evan replied calmly. Sam's jaw tightened. Proceed. The assessment commenced. The environment transformed instantly. Walls reconfigured, obstacles arose, and 3 drone adversaries activated, each calibrated for speed and anticipatory targeting. Evan moved, not rapidly but precisely. The first drone assailed from the right. Evan parried with his lead blade, deflecting the blow outwards. His second blade moved independently, intercepting a subsequent vector that the drone had calculated as open. The motion-tracking grid spiked. Analysts leaned forward. Evan stepped into the drone's timing loop. His footing constantly adjusted, never crossing, never locking. His right hand exerted pressure offensively. His left hand neutralized errors before they materialized. The second drone adapted, splitting its attack pattern, demanding a response from both sides. Evan did not mirror its rhythm. Instead, he staggered his own. One blade struck, the other held back, then reversed. The drones faltered for a fraction of a second. Just enough. Evan dismantled the first drone with a clean, dual-angled strike, an impossibility with a single weapon. A hushed stir filled the gallery. Sam fixated on the display. Motion tracking painted Evan's limbs in layered arcs, asymmetrical, independent, coordinated beyond simulation norms. Defensive lines failed because they were doubled, attack vectors intertwined without colliding. Evan did not appear spectacular. He appeared inevitable. The final drone automatically disengaged, its logic unable to reconcile the input. Silence descended upon the bay. Sam exhaled slowly. He pressed a control, freezing the display. Assessment paused, he announced. Turning to the observers, he declared, Doctrine revision pending. Then, he looked directly at Evan. Define can't, Sam commanded. Evan lowered both swords and waited. The assessment bay remained static. Sam kept the simulation frozen, while analysts argued in hushed tones behind him. The display still depicted Evan mid-stance, one blade extended, the other held close to his center line. Motion arcs hovered like specters around him. Evan remained in position, breathing evenly, patiently. He did not lower the blades until Sam gestured with 2 fingers. Set them down, Sam instructed. Evan complied, carefully placing each sword parallel on the deck, handles aligned. The movement was deliberate, almost reverent. A prolonged quiet ensued. Finally, Sam fully addressed the gallery. Doctrine states that dual-wielding is biomechanically impossible for most species due to neural overload and defensive collapse. He gestured to the frozen arcs. The data does not support that claim, at least not universally. An analyst from a 4-limbed species leaned forward. Instructor Sam, this may be a human-specific anomaly. Sam did not dismiss the idea. Possibly, but doctrine does not account for exceptions. It deals in absolutes. Another voice interjected. The trainee violated instructional guidelines. Yes, Sam acknowledged, and demonstrated a capability our simulations did not predict. He turned back to Evan. Explain. Evan did not rush his answer. The assumption is that both weapons demand equal priority, that they compete. Sam crossed his arms. They do. Only if you assign them the same task, Evan countered. I did not. The room fell silent. One blade attacks, Evan continued. It pressures. It draws a response. The other blade corrects. It fills gaps. It does not chase. An analyst frowned. That still requires divided attention. Evan shook his head. It requires layered attention. Humans do that already. Balance, breathing, vision. We are not single-channel systems. Sam scrutinized him. You trained this? Yes. Where? Sam inquired. Before the academy, Evan replied. In places where doctrine lagged reality. Sam did not press for specifics. He turned back to the display and unfroze the simulation. Resume. Adaptive parameters increased. The drones reactivated, 4 this time. Their attack patterns shifted more rapidly, less predictably. They did not fully commit, but tested, probed, seeking overload. Evan stepped forward and reclaimed the swords without ceremony. The initial exchange was harsher. The drones forced him back 2 steps, their angles tightening. One blade deflected, the other parried. A third vector slipped through, grazing his shoulder. Pain flared. Evan adjusted, shortening his right-hand arcs and widening his left. He ceased pressing the offense and let the drones approach. When they did, he tore their timing apart. One drone fell, then another. The third disengaged. The fourth hesitated just long enough for Evan to close in and disable it with a low crossing cut that locked its movement and forced shutdown. The simulation ended. This time, no one spoke. Sam approached Evan directly, close enough for Evan to observe the faint scars along the instructor's forearms. You did not overwhelm them, Sam observed. No, Evan confirmed. You outmanaged them. Yes, Sam nodded slowly. Doctrine failed because it assumed uniform failure. You demonstrated conditional success. He addressed the gallery. This does not mean all trainees will dual-wield. It means the prohibition is unsound. An analyst objected. The injury risk remains high. So does combat, Sam retorted. The session concluded without fanfare. Afterward, in the equipment corridor, Mara caught up with Evan. You could have been removed, she said. Yes. You could have failed publicly. Yes. She shook her head. You didn't even look nervous. Evan considered this. I was, just not about the blades. About what then? About whether they would listen. They listened. Over the subsequent cycles, Doctrine committees requested data. Analysts replayed footage frame by frame. Motion capture revealed independent limb timing with no measurable delay spikes. Stress markers remained within manageable ranges. Not everyone was persuaded. Some argued Evan was an anomaly. Others contended the Academy should not endorse risky techniques. Sam absorbed all input. Then he rendered a decision. During the next lecture cycle, Sam stood before a new group of trainees and did not display the old slide. Instead, he presented a revised diagram. The Academy previously taught that no species can dual-wield, Sam stated. That statement is withdrawn. A murmur passed through the room. The revised doctrine states that dual-wielding is situationally viable for species with sufficient neural independence, training discipline, and role separation. He paused. It is not forbidden, Sam continued. It is constrained. Evan sat in the second row, neither front nor back. Sam's gaze briefly met his, then moved on. This does not make dual-wielding superior, Sam clarified. It makes it possible. Possibility is not permission. Training resumed under new parameters. Only a few trainees attempted paired blades, Fewer still maintained control under pressure. Some failed spectacularly and learned quickly. Evan trained discreetly. He did not instruct unless asked. When he did, he spoke plainly. "Your offhand is not backup," he explained. "It is insurance." Real Vargo attempted it once, stopping after bruising his own forearm. "My species does not tolerate divided focus." Evan nodded. "Then do not divide it." The academy adjusted, not dramatically, not loudly, but a boundary had shifted. Doctrine no longer proclaimed can't, it implied maybe. And in an institution built on certainty, that represented a significant transformation. The academy did not celebrate the revision. There were no pronouncements beyond the updated Doctrine bulletin, no mention of names, no recorded commendation. The change appeared in the system as a line edit and a footnote. Evan Brooks preferred it that way. He returned to his routine training as if nothing had changed, conditioning in the mornings, tactical theory in the afternoons, sparring in the evenings when the bays emptied and the instructors grew quiet. Some trainees regarded him differently now, not with awe, but with calculation, assessing whether his feat could be replicated or merely observed. Most decided it was not worth the effort. A few tried anyway. Instructor Sam observed those sessions silently. He did not intervene unless a trainee lost control. When he did step in, he corrected fundamentals, not ambition. "Two blades do not make you faster," he told one overconfident recruit. "They make your mistakes louder." The message resonated. Evan's final evaluation arrived without warning, a quiet summons to a private bay. No gallery, no analysts, only Sam. The instructor gestured toward the weapon rack. "Your choice." Evan took 2 swords. Sam did not object. They faced each other on the bare floor. No sensors, no drones, no scoring. Just 2 individuals who understood why rules existed and when they failed. "Begin," Sam commanded. Sam moved first, direct and efficient. His single blade commanded space with authority. He pressed Evan back 2 steps and cut across the center line with practiced confidence. Evan met the challenge with an unconventional approach. While one blade defended, the other posed a threat. He remained composed, allowing Sam to misinterpret his strategy, then swiftly correcting the perception. Their exchange went on for several minutes, marked by economical movements and precise force. When Sam intentionally broke off, lowering his weapon, I emulated his action. Sam scrutinized him. "You never tried to overpower me." "That wasn't the goal," Evan stated. "What was then?" Sam inquired. "To maintain unpredictability without losing control." Sam nodded, observing, "That's the distinction between true skill and mere showmanship." He stepped back and offered his hand, which Evan readily clasped. "You transformed the academy," Sam remarked. "I altered a single sentence," Evan responded. Sam's grip briefly tightened. "That's precisely how institutions evolve." Graduation occurred a cycle later. Recruits dispersed among various fleets, stations, and security detachments. Some departed with clear objectives, others with lingering questions. Evan, however, left without either. Mara joined him at the shuttle bay. "Are you going to continue using 2? "When the situation calls for it," Evan replied. "And when it doesn't, I won't." She smiled, saying, "That explanation makes perfect sense now." As the shuttle departed, the academy ring diminished against the darkness. Within its walls, training persisted, doctrine upheld, continually refined and subtly reshaped. The updated curriculum featured a new paragraph under Advanced Weapon Systems. "Dual-wielding is not intrinsically unfeasible. It is conditionally effective. Misuse elevates risk, while proper application demands discipline, role differentiation, and acceptance of outcomes. No names were mentioned. In the station archives, the assessment footage remained, not as a spectacle, but as a reference for continued study. Analysts still debated its implications. Some contended it demonstrated a distinct human neurological edge. Others suggested it was simply an individual exploiting a flaw in conventional thinking. Both perspectives held partial truth. Evan Brooks applied his abilities in less conspicuous roles, performing escort duties, participating in boarding actions, and engaging in close-quarters encounters where practical tools outweighed theoretical principles. He didn't always wield two blades, but when he did, it was purely for efficacy, never for ostentation. The enduring lesson he imparted wasn't about weaponry, it was about redefined possibilities. Impossible had never been a fixed state. It had signified an untested scenario, and a single individual was prepared to undertake the experiment.